Good evening and welcome to the latest installment of Podiatry in 3 Minutes, a live webinar where we challenge a researcher to explain their most recent podiatry-related publication within just 3 minutes.
Today, myself and Sinead will be your presenters. My name is Jennifer Dowdall and I'm an MSK specialist podiatrist at Sheffield and a podiatry research assistant at Leeds University and Leeds Teaching Hospitals.
Postgraduate researcher at NUI Galway.
And of course, in the background, we have Michael Stevenson, the brains behind the webinar, pushing all the buttons and ensuring everything is running smoothly this evening.
So as always, we normally have 2 guest experts for tonight. This evening's session, after the 3 minutes of presenting are up, we will quiz Alfred on where his research sits within the body of evidence and open the floor to questions from you, the audience.
And after the 3 minutes are up, our guest will discuss how the published works exist within the surrounding body of evidence and how we might be able to apply the work to our clinical practice. And following this, we're going to open the floor to questions from the public.
So let's introduce today's guests. So good evening, Alfred. So Alfred Gatt is an associate professor at the University of Malta. He is a practicing podiatrist for over 35 years. He was Podiatry Lead for 20 years before moving on to academia. His current work is based on 3D motion analysis, medical thermography in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and CADCAM manufacture of custom foot orthoses. He is the president of the European Network of Podiatry in Higher Education and founding chair of the Diabetes Foot Research Group in the University of Malta, founding president of the Association of Podiatry of Malta and Maltese health professionals in rheumatology. So thanks very much, Alfred, for joining us this evening.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go?
Well, yeah, it's a challenge to explain everything in 3 minutes, but I'll try.
Yeah, why not?
So, okay, so I hope that you can see my screen because I can't see whether you can see the screen or not. And so the paper you are talking about is a paper that we published 12 years ago, actually. In 2012, with Professor Nachappan Chogalingam from Staffordshire University. Professor Nachi was my PhD supervisor, and he's very well known in the biomechanics field. So why the need for a new ankle dorsiflexion device? Hi, I'm not sure if you can see my screen by any chance. Okay. So this paper that we are looking at, and sorry if I am repeating what I have said before, but probably I wasn't on air. So it's about the validity of a new ankle dorsiflexion measurement device. This paper was published in 2012, actually, when I was finishing my PhD with Professor Nachappan Chogalingam from from Staffordshire University. Nachi was my supervisor for my PhD, and he's very well known in the biomechanics field. So why the need to measure ankle dorsiflexion? So basically, we know that there are a lot of MSK conditions related to limited ankle dorsiflexion, including low back pain, hallux rigidus, calcaneal spur, spurs, foot nerve entrapments, Achilles tendinopathy, and the list goes on and on and on. Also in diabetes, limited ankle dorsiflexion is really connected to a lot of problems, especially for foot ulceration. And basically, I think this is a very important condition that as podiatrists, we need to look at. Well, I call it a latent condition because most of the time, unless you're looking for it, you will not be able to judge whether the patient has limited ankle dorsiflexion or not. I do not really agree with the terminology that we have adopted in podiatry, which is the routine terminology, which is a lack of less than 10 degrees of dorsiflexion with the subtalar joint neutral position. I prefer to call it limited ankle dorsiflexion. However, how do we clinically examine this condition? And we use a goniometer. This is a simple goniometer. However, there is a lot of evidence that shows that clinical goniometry in this manner is quite unreliable. Also, there is visual estimation that we can do, and however, that is quite subjective and doesn't really leave a lot of space to write in the record, so that we can refer to later on. Believe it or not, there are about 23 methods of measuring ankle dorsiflexion, and there are several specially designed goniometers, starting from the biplane goniometer. There is the Lidcombe template, the equinometer. So the measurement of ankle dorsiflexion has always been a problem throughout, because basically it is quite difficult to achieve. And it is quite difficult to achieve because, as everyone will know, the foot is a multi-segmental structure. And when we think we are measuring ankle dorsiflexion, we are actually measuring foot dorsiflexion, which will include dorsiflexion at the mid-tarsal joint and dorsiflexion of the subtalar joint, actually. So we came up with this design because we wanted to eliminate the problems of reliability, and we designed this goniometer to hold the foot in any posture desired by the clinician, because from our research we found that posture can be really can really change the final angle that we are examining, that we derive, and it will measure true ankle dorsiflexion and not foot dorsiflexion, and it will eliminate forefoot involvement in the measurement process. So this went through a lot of validity and reliability. And basically, we in this paper, we showed how all the processes that went through this, and well, we concluded that it was a valid device, and it has been tested for reliability in various populations, unlike many other devices. We tested this in healthy adults. We tested it amongst patients. We also did inter-rater reliabilities amongst 4 podiatrists. So basically, we are quite sure that it is a reliable device. And basically, the final question is, can this be adopted for clinical examination? However, to be honest, since that period of time in following 2012, we have tried to simplify this device and make it more sort of appealing to the clinician, and we did encounter a lot of design problems. So basically, throughout this process, the most important things that came out is the importance of foot posture, because foot posture can affect our dorsiflexion measurements by about as much as 10 degrees, really. I'm not sure how I am with time, because basically I'm not seeing anything about Oh, it's 0, so I should stop. Okay, otherwise I can go on and on.
Thanks very much, Alfred. A little over time, but you got there.
Apologies, but when I was sharing my screen, I couldn't see anything else. Problem with having the Mac, I'm told.
No, you did great. It was brilliant.
So,
how did you find that? How did you find the presentation? Was it okay?
Yeah, well.
Hard to compress into 3 minutes.
Hard to compress because you have to run, and you're aware of the time. I wasn't aware of the time, and I have habit of speaking on and on and on. So keeping me, restrained to 3 minutes isn't easy.
Yeah, you'll have more time to speak now. Would you like to maybe discuss where it fits in the main body of evidence now? Alfred?
Yeah. Well, when I was doing my PhD, I had all sorts of grand ideas about this ankle dorsiflexion, how I was going to solve all the problems with ankle dorsiflexion, and but then I realized that the problem was actually determining whether the patient had limited ankle dorsiflexion or not. Out with the idea of designing a goniometer, and I was shocked really that I found 23 different methods of measuring ankle dorsiflexion. And at that time, there was quite a lot of research going on. And nowadays, the research has tapered down a bit as regards ankle dorsiflexion, I'm afraid. I feel that this is a hugely important subject. I look for ankle dorsiflexion in all my patients. Any patient who comes to me with some form of musculoskeletal conditions, I'm like 80% sure that I'm going to find some sort of dorsal-sagittal plane blockage, whether it's at the ankle or whether it's in the hallux or whatever. So yeah, it's a very important topic. Again, as I said, recently the evidence, the literature is tapering down. To be honest, it was more sort of fashionable to research ankle dorsiflexion in the late 90s and in the the 2010 period, and then it looks like a lot of people are losing interest unfortunately a lot of situations where our patients are suffering because of this.
Okay, and I suppose you mentioned there how you would use it on all patients that come in, but do you feel like maybe in diabetic patients, it's often the MSK side of things is often overlooked? And
definitely. Yeah. We seem to categorize our patients. Mm-hmm. They are MSK patients or diabetic patients, or they are vascular patients, and it's very hard to combine the two together. Even students, sometimes they think that you cannot apply biomechanical theories to patients with diabetes. So the first thing they think about when you have a patient with diabetes is vascular supply and neuropathy and mostly preventing wounds and so forth. However, the biomechanical aspect of it is huge. We must keep in mind that in diabetes, there's this problem with glycosylation. And glycosylation, which is the deposition of glucose in the soft tissues, which makes soft tissue stiffer. And among these, there is the Achilles tendon, and there are the calf muscles. And the stiffer they are, the more likely is that we will have a reduction in ankle dorsiflexion. And that means increase in an immediate thing is an increase in forefoot pressure.
Okay, yeah.
Because you asked me because I can continue, Another thing that concerns me a lot in diabetes is Charcot foot, which relates directly to the measurement of ankle dorsiflexion. Because what happens is when we measure ankle dorsiflexion, we think we are measuring ankle dorsiflexion, but in fact we are measuring foot dorsiflexion. And I make a distinct difference between the two. So in foot dorsiflexion, you have dorsiflexion around the calcaneogeupoid joint axis, okay, which means that if I don't have enough dorsiflexion in the ankle, I or the patient will then try to dorsiflex around the mid-tarsal joint. Okay. And that typical Charcot rocker bottom foot is possibly the result of this, amongst other features of Kissley.
Are you hoping to expand the research that you did in this paper? Are you hoping to expand it to specific patient groups and do more research within those areas, such as the diabetic patients?
Yes, definitely. I'm into all areas of research, and one of my soft spots, if you want to study this, is integrating biomechanics with diabetes care, okay? Because I think that the patients with diabetes exhibit problems which we can see before they are out there. So yes, I do have chance of looking into this matter more. However, it all depends on the number of students that we have. We provide must in Malta, besides undergraduate students, and our undergraduate students do full research. We've published a lot of undergraduate studies,
okay,
as regular papers, and then masters and PhDs. We are looking into biomechanics in at least three separate projects.
Okay, and I suppose back to the actual device, and you mentioned how you've been struggling, you've met some design issues. Is that something that you're still trying to overcome? Like, is this device unique in that it measures ankle dorsiflexion as opposed to foot dorsiflexion? Is there other instruments out there that do that as it is, or what's?
There are other instruments that claim to do the same thing. However, there are various challenges when you want to measure ankle dorsiflexion. First of all, when I watch my students do it, you need 3 hands, not 2, to hold the goniometer on the lateral, the way they traditionally do it, the way you hold the goniometer and you try to put the foot in any particular position, whether it's pronated, supinated, or whatever. Okay, and then there's a question of alignment. Okay, so when they apply a force, and you look at the goniometer, it's normally out of alignment. Also, there is the question of the axis of motion. As we know, the axis of motion in the ankle joint runs along the malleoli, the 2 malleoli. So placing a goniometer underneath the malleoli is not really providing quite an accurate representation of the motion that is occurring in the ankle joint itself. I would call that a summation of any dorsiflexion occurring at the ankle joint and the subtalar joint, because we will remember that the subtalar joint is also a triplanar joint. So a certain amount of dorsiflexion is occurring at the subtalar joint as well. Okay, and when we have a long goniometer that spans along the lateral aspect of the foot, it's measuring the whole foot movement, including dorsiflexion at the mid-tarsal joint. Okay, so there are a lot of challenges, And we managed to go around these challenges. First of all, the goniometer itself has to rest on a solid sort of area where it cannot move. And the only place we have there is the front, the shin, okay? And then it has to be fixed in place, and it has to be aligned with the border of the lateral leg from the malleolus up to the femoral condyle, okay? And then we have to put, and this is probably the most important part, we have to put the foot in a particular position. The foot posture, whether the foot is pronated, supinated, or in the so-called neutral position, and I don't want to create any controversies as regards neutral position, but I was raised up on root biomechanics. Let us eliminate neutral position, okay? So if we put the foot in a supinated position and measure ankle dorsiflexion, and then we put the foot in a fully pronated position and measure ankle dorsiflexion again, we'll see that there is a difference by up to 10 degrees. Now, that motion can only come from the mid-tarsal joint, okay? So for me, there are a lot of studies that measure ankle dorsiflexion, but in fact, they don't do it correctly. It's not really ankle dorsiflexion. You see, there is this inbuilt mechanism within the foot. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if you have someone with a limited ankle dorsiflexion and you pronate the foot and you apply pressure again, you will see that this angle increases, but at the expense of pronating the foot. And possibly over the years, the foot will adopt a more pronated position, because you cannot have sagittal plane blockage at the ankle joint and walk normally. So the body will try to overcome that. So the most common type of pronated feet that I meet with in my clinical practice, they have these two characteristics. First of all, a tight gastrocnemius or calf muscle group. And then they tend to develop hypermobility in the mid-tarsal joint. And I think my hypothesis is that, this hypermobility in the mid-tarsal joint is secondary to that tightness. Mm-hmm. And recently, I mean, if you don't anymore, we just presented a paper last week at the Staffordshire conference where we looked at gait of type 1 children with diabetes. And believe it or not, these 13-year-olds, because that was the average age, had more hammer toes, claw toes, hallux valgus, pronated feet than their healthy counterparts. And lo and behold, they had restricted ankle dorsiflexion, and even dynamically, they had less dorsiflexion during heel strike, mid stance, and toe off, which we measured using our Vicon system. So that tells me that even in children, this can be a significant problem, especially if these children are living with diabetes. And well, these children are going to go into adulthood, right? They're going to become adult people with diabetes, and they already have a foot problem.
Okay.
And this can be looked at biomechanically.
And so I suppose as of now, the fact that the device isn't being manufactured, how are you going about measuring the way you want to without the device?
Well, I do have a couple of devices that I use, but in reality, what I've learned as well, first of all, there is the design of the device on the paper. I put the design there. Mm-hmm. And anyone can make it, and I actually made it myself. Okay.
Wow.
And secondly, what I learned is that once you supinate the foot, you will at least know whether there is some form of joint restriction or not. Okay. So this will remove any issues related to subtalar joint neutral, because a lot of people, well, there's some people that say that doesn't exist. Okay, let's leave that. They find it, they say it's unreliable. So in order to eliminate that unreliability problem, to eliminate any forefoot movement, you just put the foot in a supinated position, apply force onto the forefoot as far as it will go. And there is really, we published another paper that shows that the amount of force, because in a lot of physiotherapy paper, they measure the force that is applied because they can apply that to ankle stiffness. But irrespective of the amount of force you put, once you reach a stage where it cannot go any further, it will not go any further, And actually, if you try to force it more, you're actually risking damaging the tricep sura.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you any, I suppose, take-home points before we wrap up, Alfred, or
take home points? Yeah.
Yeah, for any clinician that's watching.
Yes. First of all, the same thing I say to my students: always know the foot type you are dealing with. Even if your patient is coming to you, even if it's not an MSK problem, okay? Because it can eventually turn out to be an MSK problem. You have a patient with a simple callosity, but that is an MSK problem. You should do a biomechanical examination of the foot, okay? Which is examination for range of movement of the ankle, subtalar joint, mid-tarsal joint, oblique and longitudinal axis, first and fifth MPJs, and hallux dorsiflexion. And once you start doing that, after a year, you can do that in 5 minutes flat, okay? Ankle dorsiflexion, for me, is the condition that really needs to be tackled. And the problem here is that it's not easy to solve this problem. We say stretch, okay. Does it work? I don't know. This is where we'd like to go on finding other, first of all, raising awareness on how important this condition is, and secondly, finding ways of increasing ankle range of movement. So,
yeah, that's great. Thanks very much. Jen, have you anything to add, or?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Alfred. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem.
Yes.